So my most frequently asked question over on Instagram is how do you choose your color palettes? And I thought, yeah, I can do that. So I started planning out this video, and after thinking for a while, it was a lot more complicated than I first actually anticipated. Over this past year, I learned a lot more about color and color theory and just ended up teaching a lot of things to myself that I actually didn't realize I was teaching to myself. So being able to reflect on those things and try to share it with you guys is actually quite a difficult task. However, I think I have broken it down into 6 different sections that I think will hopefully be helpful to you guys. So in this video, I'll go over what is a color palette, how do I get started on doing color palettes, easy tips to use while trying to figure out how to use color palettes, beginner mistakes I see really often, and exercises you can use to try and improve your coloring ability. So a color palette is a range of colors typically using color theory that could be used to portray emotions using certain tones. For instance, the color red might portray violence, aggression, hot, and the color blue would portray peace or calm. There are 3 main components to using color, and those are hue, saturation, and brightness. So you see I have this orange background right here. She's colored in olive orange, and on Procreate, if you go to hue, saturation, and brightness, you can see you can adjust all of those options. So if I wanted to change the color, I could use hue to slide it around. Now she is blue. And if I wanted her to be less saturated, I would move it slightly this way to make it closer to the grayscale. And brightness is just moving it brighter or darker. If you use Procreate like me, there's all these options at the bottom, so you could use disc. This is just the classic one I see a lot of people using, but I prefer using the disc because you can see the opposite colors. So if I wanted to use a complementary color, then I could use the one across from it on the spectrum. There's also other options like harmony and value, and I particularly want to talk about the palette option. So you have a lot of palettes here, and Procreate has this nice feature where you can add in a picture, so you choose from photos. So if you see a nice palette you like on Pinterest or Instagram, then you can just import it into your palette on Procreate, and you can use this to find really nice, interesting colors for your drawings. Now, some easy tips to use when you're trying to start improving your skills is one big one, and it is set your background color first. And I remember when I first started drawing, I'd always color the person first and then try to use a background with the same kind of atmosphere I was trying to put them in, or whatever I think suited the color palette I'd chosen for the main colors of the character. So the reason I'm saying you choose the background color first, if you want to have a lot darker palette, it's easier to set that dark scale first than trying to do it after and having to change all the colors and make them all darker. The same thing goes for if she was going to be set during the day. So if I were going to set her during the night, I might choose a darker purple color like this. And this would be our background. And then from there, I could choose colors that would complement that and set her in that atmosphere. So if you set the background first, you will set the tone for your whole piece. So if you want it to be more intense, you could choose a more intense color like bright red, or if you wanted it just to be a calm painting, you could choose a lighter blue. So the second tip I have is choose one color for the background like this, and say you want this to be the skin tone. I'm just gonna adjust it slightly. So say you wanted this to be your skin tone, you could set this as your background for the whole character, and then this would be setting the palette for that whole character. And now if I do a clipping mask over this, any other color that I use over it will stay within those boundaries. So if I wanted her hair to be a pink color like this, it's easy to see right directly on that color by using this base color to start your palette. And by setting that one color as your background, you can easily set your palette earlier on for what you want the tone for the whole piece to be. And my last tip is to use and abuse the palettes feature on Procreate. As you can see, I have a lot of palettes saved to my camera roll. I'm pretty sure a lot of these are just pictures from Pinterest that I really like the colors, so I just saved them. And to set them as this palette for the image right here, you can just click these 3 dots and then set as default. So something similar to that, and you can always swap the colors around if you don't like them. So for beginner mistakes, there are 2 main things I see beginner artists doing, and that is coloring very pale and safely. So these are all very safe colors and the background is white. It's not very experimental. This could also be a very stylized thing though, so if this is what you prefer, good for you, good job. You can stay like that, you don't need to change up how you draw. The second one is coloring a little too intensely. This could also be a very interesting stylized thing, but yet again, if this is what you enjoy, sure, yep, keep doing it. It's kind of hard to find a middle ground between those two, so I would recommend using a couple of those mid-tones, a few of those safer ones, and then maybe 1 or 2 more intense colors. And I wouldn't recommend having those colors very prominent features of your character, such as the skin, the hair, the very big coat right here. I would make it something like the details on her necklace, maybe it's her makeup, maybe it's her buttons, something a lot smaller, but that adds a lot of pop to the painting. So some exercises I've tried to use to improve my color palette skills is the first one, setting your background first to try and draw your character during the night, the day, maybe a more intense setting. Maybe they're really in some bright red setting, so they have some reflections on their face that are bright red. The second one is to observe some color palettes and some shading that you really like, maybe from another artist you like, maybe it's in real life, maybe it's on Pinterest or Instagram. Just observe things you really like with color palettes, and eventually you can take those into your art and you can start incorporating them into your drawings and characters. The third one I really enjoy is draw a shape like a circle in a very saturated color like this, and then color in the middle with a different color. So I'm going to choose a blue, which is almost on the other side, well, pretty much is, and then I'll make it more desaturated or bright, and then fill it in, and I'll see how these 2 colors compare next to each other. And then you can go even onto the hue option and just mess around with what colors you like. And this is the finished piece. You can let me know what you think. I am really happy with the way it turned out. Our color palette is full of some purples, yellows, pinks, and I think it suits the character very well. So that's it for this video. I hope you took something away from it, maybe learned something about color palettes, and I hope to see you in the next video.